Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I am Tyler, and today we are continuing The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, chapters 91 through 120. Good stuff. Good stuff this time. Um, Obviously, a couple sort of like big scenery changes that we have. Um, and also gearing up for the end of the book. Next week will be the end of this book, so we're kind of at like that last leg. I spoke about it before, but when we read chapters 60 through 90, no, that's wrong. Yes, no, 30 through 60, which was that second fifth. uh, that was like the weird zone of like, oh, we're still in the introduction, but um, we're not quite at like where stuff starts to pay off. This is the complete opposite of that, right? Where everything's paying off, and it's good. It's good. Um, so yeah, as always, we'll start at the very end. We have Kvothe at the very very end. He feels, he feels that he has done everything he, he was supposed to do, right? To get in with all the Adem and everybody. And I don't know, he almost feels betrayed. Where it's like, I've been polite, I've learned the language, I've been respectful of like the facial stuff and the music and the physical contact and just everything, right? He's tried his best. Um, but it's still all boiling down to him being like a barbarian, him being a dog. And we're not 100% sure. He doesn't come out and like say what his plan is. He's getting like the wax and he's clearly making some sort of moments. He's got the water, which is clearly his heat source. Got a couple other things, some strings, some whatever. Um, we can take some guesses, but I think overall, malfeasance would would be the accurate term there. Now we understand why he feels this way, right? Because at the end of the day, he's really just trying to help his friend. Now we do learn when he asks Vachette about like, well, if I would have left, would I have been able to leave? She says no, and then that sort of trickles down to if he never even decided to come with Tempe here, would he have been able to live? And I feel like the answer is no. I feel like they would have hunted him down. So this is truly his only way to survive himself. Um, Again, it seems for the most part they wouldn't really kill him, um, but they would have done some terrible things. And I think the worst thing for him would be them like taking his hands or his fingers, whatever, and him not be able to play the lute anymore. Um, I think even if they were to like cut out his tongue and not be able to sing anymore, I think that would really hurt him. But I think overall the worst thing would not being able to play his music. Um, but even still, whatever way you slice it, bad stuff is happening. So he feels that he's done everything he's supposed to do. I mean, even again, he didn't know about all these potential consequences. He just decided to come with Tempe because he was like, I can't let that happen. Also, he wanted to learn some things, um, some stuff with what the tree said. But he almost feels like he's put in everything and he hasn't got anything in return. Um, so again, I don't know if what he's doing right now is his plan A or if it's his plan B. Hopefully, it's his plan B, and and he's not like, first chance I get, I'm burning this place to the ground. you know. Hopefully that's not it. But again, there is the ray of hope at the end, because we don't know what Vachette will come to. We don't know, what she'll decide. Um, she says that there's like, the way I took it is she's like, there is some darkness in you. and I don't know how to quite interpret it. Um, Best case scenarios that we were hoping, again, you're just a barbarian, you lack the way of the Lithani. If that was it, that can be overlooked. That's kind of what we're working on here. But if it's something more than that, her talking about false faces, um, which I don't think that's fair, because to me, us being the reader and us obviously being in Quoth's head, and Quoth telling the story, Quoth wasn't really putting on a false face. He was just trying to learn, um, and help out Tempe. Because when she says false face, I feel like that implies some sort of like evil ulterior motive, like he was infiltrating this place to do something, to like steal stuff or whatever. And unless I missed it, I don't remember Quoth ever saying that or thinking it. So I don't think that's particularly fair, but I think we can also look into the other side of things. Like she said, like there is something about you, that that we can't quite pinpoint, and then that is where we start to unravel it and look at the journey that we haven't even seen yet to lead him to where he is now, Coat at the Wayside Inn. Um, right, Wayside Inn. That's where he is. Yeah, Waystone, Waystone. I don't know. Him with Bastion Chronicler, right? And it's like this being called the King Killer Chronicle. It's like, and then even Bast, which we'll get into in a second, but him talking about how he spoke to the tree. I'm just gonna call it the tree. I don't like trying to pronounce the actual name of the tree. It's not even the tree though. It's like a spirit in the tree or something. I don't know. Him talking about that, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like if you talk to the tree, you now basically hold like a plague, and so every decision you make up after that affects everything disastrously. Um, we got some connections there, but um, yeah. So again, we'll see. Again, I've read this, as I will try to note at least once an episode. Um, I don't remember though. I don't remember what he does. Like I don't remember how this book ends. I've remembered a few things here and there, but the ending to this book escapes me. I really don't. You know. But we'll see. Let's see more. We'll get to the Felurian stuff probably last, because that was the real meat of this section. Let's see. It's pretty much all Felurian. Yeah. So yeah, and then we do have the the sort of purpose of him coming here and like what he has to do. Vachette does pretty much confirm that he does have to get into the school and like pass some test, in order to redeem Tempe, and everyone won't necessarily be happy, but that is the only way for everyone to get out of this unscathed. Not sure what that means, because we do hear her say that she will like, I forget the word, it's basically like sponsoring. She'll like sponsor him, but I imagine there's something more to it, and it's not just like, oh, I vouch for Kvothe, and everyone's like, all right, Vachette vouches for Kvothe, he's in, give him his reds. It's probably not that easy, but and now with this ending, it's like I don't even know if we'll get there. Vachette clearly has a sour taste in her mouth about it, and we don't even know what she will decide. We might not even get to that point. It might just be, her coming back and being like, all right, I've decided I can't be your teacher anymore, and you don't deserve to learn any of this. You know. And yeah. And there's just like a few kind of interesting things about the Adem and their people and kind of their like cultural differences that, that Kvothe learns. One is that singing is very taboo, which is interesting because for Kvothe specifically, how much he prides himself on being a musician, on a performer, Edinburgh, all that stuff, for that main thing that he does to be like, ooh, don't do that here. I mean, you can, but it is going to tank your reputation. Um, I think it's just nice to kind of have that like flip flop of, I don't know, of like characteristics, right? Because up until this point, with this almost 2 books that we've read so far with this character, that is something that's always been his lifeline, his like tether to the world. Kept him sane at the very least, and at the very most has been some of his greatest joys. So for him to come here and be like, well, maybe don't do that here. Very hard for him. And again, it just makes him feel even more of an outsider, because again, even in these other moments in his life where he's been alone, he's always been able to play his lute. Going back to when the Chandrian killed his family, what did he do? He played his lute all day, every day, until the strings broke, and then even after the strings broke, he still played the lute. So very tough. Another cultural difference: physical contact is not particularly intimate. Very strange. Again, kind of a few things he stumbles upon, but then also more directly, it being physical contact between him and Vachette. Very strange. And I like this one in particular, especially with this story, not just as a fact in a vacuum. I think it's very interesting having this be the case, and for Kvothe to be with these people that feel this way about physical contact, for it to be immediately succeeded by him being in the presence and the company of the Felurian, and what she's all about. It's like, for him to, we even saw a lot of the, some of the after effects of, like, even after he left, there were some things that his brain almost got like half rewired. He came back into the bar and saw this woman, and he was like, had these impulses, and for a second he's like, I don't understand why I'm not doing this right now. Very akin to when he was on the Plum Bob stuff, where it's like, okay, why am I not doing this? Why is this wrong? And then he gets tethered, and it's like, oh no, wait, hold on. Clearly her husband is sitting right there. We're in view of dozens and dozens of people. This would be wrong. But for a second he was like, well, I mean, this is just how it is, we should be getting intimate right now. And it's like, no. Literally no one thinks this. But with this time with the Felurian, everything was very different. And it's not even that he was like putting any woman in the Felurian's place. It was more so just like, when he was with the Felurian, there was certain ways of thinking and certain ways of acting, to a point where it just became sort of like, again, this is what we do. So to be thrust back into the mortal realm, where some things are very, very different. It became jarring for him. So reeling that all the way back into the Adem and where they're at, it's like, now it's jarring again, because now it's like the complete opposite. It's not just like, well, maybe don't do that here. Now with the physical contact, it's like, this is not like, this is a complete opposite. This is on the complete other end of the spectrum, where we don't go for subtlety in those intimate moments. We don't go for, like, it is way more practical than it is emotional. So yeah. And then the last sort of Adem stuff, we have Celian, I guess, little 10-year-old girl, I guess. Just destroys Kvothe. Kvothe does eventually win. A bout, but in the beginning it was mostly him getting destroyed, and I just like that moment. Again, there are so many moments in which Kvothe makes assumptions and he thinks he is very clever, which he is. But he starts connecting dots and he starts looking past the moment that he's in. And so that's sort of what happened here, where he was already assuming, like, what is Vichette's plan? Like, what does anyone gain from me beating a 10-year-old girl in a fight? And then they fight, and you realize you've blown way past what this is. You're assuming that there is some sort of like moral lesson here for beating up a little girl, and in reality, the lesson is you can't beat her. You are not good enough to beat her, not even close. So I really like that. That was cool. Again, just showing the differences. We always get that reinforced because with the Kvothe character, again, we've read almost 2 books now. We know how quickly he picks up on things, how adept he seems to be at everything he sets his mind to. And so for us to have something like this, and this isn't the first time, but this is just another time where it's like, hey, you are not going to pick this up and just be the master, not nearly that quickly. You've been training for like a couple months at this point. This girl has been training for years. She's young, but she's been training for years because she lives here and she grew up here and she continues to. So that was cool. I guess one small thing before we get to the Felurian, we did end our little bandit hunt in this, in this section as well. And it does actually lead to a little bit of the conversation the tree has. So we'll get over to that too. But the one thing I really wanted to note was Kvothe called down lightning. Now, even Kvothe is not 100% sure how this worked, how he did it. Even when he tries to explain it, he's like, listen, all I know is that in my head, I had the whole sympathy thing, the link, to tell you that I called down lightning and aimed it at, like, nah, I would be a fool to take full credit for it. But, it happened and people saw it, and I'm going to ride on the story. I just thought that was really cool because, again, I think magic is fascinating in this world because we have real magic, right? Like we have, whether it's to teach at the university with like the sympathy and all that, sigildry with the runes, right? And then we have knowing the name of things, that you have the control over it. We have the seemingly what the real magic is, which we'll get to in a second, which is when your sleeping mind is awake. And like you're able to be like cognizant for it, not just like when Kvothe called the name of the wind in a flash and hit Ambrose. No, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But then you have things that Kvothe does, and I'm sure he's not the only one, not the first one, not the last one, but you have things that Kvothe does where it is a trick. And it's not a magic trick in the sense that it's fake, but it is something that he is able to learn through his cleverness, but also his resourcefulness and his memory. He's able to piece all these things together to create magic, but to make it seem, way bigger than it actually is, right? So we had the other quote-unquote lightning moment when he was getting ambushed by those 2 mercenaries, most likely confirmed to be sent by Ambrose, and he had some sort of like metal powder or something, and he made it flash super bright, and it basically blinded both of them. Their story was that he called down lightning. We know he didn't do that, but it also wasn't completely fake. Like he did, that like metal powder or something was very particular to that element, and he knew how to make it do what he wanted to do. So for all intents and purposes, it was magic, as much as anything could be magic that you learned from the Arcanum, from the university, right? Now the lightning thing, a little more so. But again, to say he called down lightning, that's not what he did. He was very, very lucky. Um, Again, all the stars aligned perfectly for him to do what he hoped, uh, would happen. But you know, in a sense, it's magic as much as anything else he's done has been magic. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I thought I thought it was really cool. Obviously, it's cool to see his reputation grow. Will that spread? I don't know. But it is just another example of Quoth doing something for real, but also twisting it and being able to exaggerate it to create just another piece to his legend, um, which is just what he needs, right? To feed his ego and to put him in these other harrowing situations. But now we've reached the Felurian, which was about 90% of what this part was. And I think, you know, because there have been, I'll get kind of outside the book for a second, there have been uh, very valid criticisms about this section in particular from these books. There's been criticisms of the second book, Wise Man's Fear, uh, overall, but I think this section is really the one that does it. Um, as it being like indulgent, Patrick, self. I was gonna say self-inserting himself. That's just redundant. Him using quotes as like a self-insert in this section, and it's funny on a surface level, but I think on a deeper level, there is some very intentional criticism happening with this section, and to me, I didn't remember this very well, obviously, going into it, but now that I'm reading it, my opinion is that I don't think they stick with the with the very intimate and explicit stuff for very long. Almost not at all. Like there are no like super explicit or or even like halfway explicit scenes in this section. So that's one, and then two, I think there's a number of things that we learn from the Felurian and just from this section that I think wholeheartedly warrant this being in this book. And not just being like, oh, Kvothe gets attracted by this like seduction fairy, and this is just like no, like that, like that's not. Again, I don't think it's as indulgent as people like to make it seem. I honestly think a lot of people that criticize this section remember the story that Kvothe tells in the bar to the people more so than the actual story itself. Because in the bar, when he tells the people of his story with the Felurian, he's like, I could have told them the truth, but they wouldn't have believed it. That, oh, I got away from them because I held a song hostage. That wouldn't have matched any of the stories that already exist about the Felurian, and it wouldn't have been as exciting to them. So I told a story about how impressed she was from my skills. So again, very different. And I think a lot of people who read this and criticize it sort of remember that part of it as to what actually happened. And it's like, no, that's not what she was like. She wasn't impressed at all, really. I mean, she was impressed in the slightest sense of like, oh, you're like a little different than I would have expected. But like, she's not like, whoa, you're incredible. I should learn from you. Like, no. But brushing that aside, we'll get to the actual story. We'll get to the moment that I sort of mentioned earlier. Kvothe feels like he says he realizes, but feels like he's not 100% sure that he could have killed the Felurian in the moment. He learns. He doesn't really learn. That's not true. There's a moment where his sort of sleeping mind wakes up and he's able to see things for the first time, it seems. He thinks for a flash that he wonders if this is how Eladin sees things all the time. Again, it's hard to describe, but he's just like, I'm seeing the world for the first time. Um, he seemingly gets full control over the wind. Again, not just in a flash like he did out of like the emotional stuff. Eladin's already talked about like the connection with like emotions and the sleeping mind. Um, this is more so like I am doing it and I'm still doing it. He like traps the Felurian, yeah, because he gets upset because he's like, his mind has always been the one thing that he's able to be in full control of, and so in that moment when he tries to leave and the Felurian doesn't do anything, she just kind of like looks at him, and all of his faculties fail him. He gets furious because he's like, no one is allowed to touch my mind. That is off limits, and so that kind of spurs this moment. Um, it was kind of scary, honestly. Because even that moment, I kind of felt for the Felurian, and he did too, which is why he didn't do it. But he's like, oh no, I can't do that. Like part of me really wants to, and part of me definitely could, but I couldn't kill. Like she's ancient. She's the Fae. She represents, a part of something that doesn't belong to me. Doesn't belong to humans. Doesn't belong to mortals. Um, but I think the other side of it is what this means, right? Like I wonder how or when or if Kvothe will ever be able to do that again. I'm very interested again. I don't remember how this book ends. We could spend the next 30, the last, I should say, we could spend the last 30 chapters in a dem doing whatever. I don't know. But if he does make his way back to the university, which I hope he would, it'd be cool for him to see all of his friends again, the people he knows, and even like see Will and Sim again and be like, guys, you don't understand. I need you to clear your schedules for like a week because I have some stories to tell you. We got the mayor, we got Dennis stuff, we got Felurian stuff, and now we have a Dem stuff. And then anything that happens between then, if again, I'm just theorizing, but that'd be insane. But if you were to make it back to the university, it'd be interesting to see him have a conversation with Aladin and be like, "This happened." I mean, first off, the whole Felurian stuff would be interesting to tell him. I'm sure he wouldn't tell him the details, although I could see Aladin wanting the details. But even him being like, "Yo, there was this moment where I called the name of the wind, and it wasn't just a moment. Like it was a prolonged period of time, and I was like actively doing it." Because I'm sure that that's like the next step, I would imagine. Um, but yeah, that was crazy. Some other stuff we got. Even the Felurian does not want to talk about the Chandrian. She was very serious about it. Again, most of the time she's like kind of carefree, kind of bubbly or whatever. At this moment, she was not. She was none of those things. She swore by about a dozen different things, by her name, all this stuff of like, if you ask me, if you even like halfway ask me or do as a joke or try to, ask me not with your words but with your intention, like any way you do, I will kill you. She says it more eloquently than that, but that's basically what she says, like dead seriousness. Um, Even she won't speak of the seven. Um, so yeah, again, it's just increasing the allure of the Chandrian. Every chance we get, it is also frustrating because most of the time, whenever the Chandrian are spoke of or mentioned or whatever, it's in these fairy tales, right? And then that has caused Kvothe to be very apprehensive when it comes to mentioning them or trying to study them. In his mind, he's like, well, I know they're real. Like they killed my troop, they killed my parents. But to everyone else, they're not real. And they're not real in a sense of like, well, I mean, if there were stores at the Chandrian, we're over there. We're not gonna go over there. We'd be fools to go over there. They're not real, but I wouldn't risk it. Like that sort of thing. Um, but then there's these moments where he talks to people that fully confirm their belief in the Chandrian. We have the whole Denna stuff where, I don't think Denna was all in, but they were kind of able to convince each other, but then again, you have the Felurian and it's like, I will not speak of them, and I'm part of the Fae, like I'm in the Fae court, like I'm crazy old, crazy power, like all this stuff. And she's like, I'm not doing that. I will not speak of their name. You will not ask me about them. And then we get to the tree later. We'll talk about it in a second, but like, yeah, I don't know. I'll put a pin in that because I think the more important thoughts are along with what the tree says. But next thing is a little meta, but there is a moment where the Felurian's telling a story about the first and greatest shaper. And she says that he is beyond the doors of stone. We also have Bass mention the doors of stone. We'll talk about that in a second. The only reason I bring it up is because the third book that hopefully we will get at some point. It's been a decade at this point, but third book is supposedly going to be called The Doors of Stone, unless Pat changes it. But Doors of Stone. So I thought that was interesting. I think that's the first time that the name Doors of Stone has been mentioned at all. So that I'm sure has caused a lot of theories about what the third book will hopefully hold. What are the Doors of Stone? That sort of thing. But just wanted to mention that as like I said, third book not out yet. Crossing our fingers. We've been crossing our fingers for a decade. But yeah. Another thing that she says that I think is fun. She says, a wise man. What did she say? A wise man views a moonless night with fear. Now, this I found important because, again, we have on a surface level why this section is enjoyable, why it's fun to read because of who the Felurian is and the little moments that she has with Kvothe. Although I will say, none of it is drawn out. I feel like for the most part, we just hear, oh, and then they lay down and then whatever, and then we get past it. Again, this is not like some like raunchy whatever, right? But deeper than that, I think we learn a lot of things. Already mentioned the Chandrian, little doors of stone mentioned, whatever, right? A wise man views a moonless night with fear. This is where we really learn a lot, and a lot being relative just because we have learned almost nothing up until this point about the Fae. There's a whole other side of things that most people are just like, fairy tales, right? Literally fairy tales. But there is that always edge to everything where it's like, well, I mean, we're going to listen to the fairy, we're going to listen to them a little bit, just a little bit, right? Again, if there were word of the Chandrian in this town or whatever, that's preposterous. If the Chandrian aren't real, I mean, we're not going to go to the town, obviously. Well, I mean, why would we risk? Why would we do that? But the Chandrian aren't real. I mean, we're not going over there because they're not there. Clearly, they're fake. But why would I want to go to that town? It is this like double-edged thing, where they don't believe something, but it's still better safe than sorry. But it's like, if you don't believe it, then there's no sorry to be had. So. So yeah, the whole Fae thing, and we learn more about like the moon and about how that like started this divide and how it was like beginning of the end, whatever that means. I just really like that section. I mean, her even saying that quote in particular references when there's some crossover in the worlds, saying that moonless night for the mortals means that the moon is fully in the Fae court for that time period, which apparently gives any Fae who really wants to, a little bit of determination, could get to the mortal world, and most likely not a good thing. We don't want that. So again, possibly some foreshadowing. I don't remember. This could also be foreshadowing into the third book, for all I know / remember. Um, is this building towards Kvothe fighting Fae? I mean, he is, maybe wants to have some sort of altercation with the Chandrian, which I don't think is smart. Kvothe, very clever, very resourceful. I don't think he could just kill a Chandrian. Well, we'll see. But yeah, again, I like the Felurian as a character because I think characters in general that sort of come off as regular or carefree or passionate about certain things to a point where you almost forget how powerful they are, and how powerful or how ancient or how wise or any combination of that or any permutation of that, I think, are always fun characters to have, because they're usually not the main character or even like the main protagonist. They're usually these side characters that the protagonist has some sort of interactions with, possibly recurring, but in these moments, it isn't the the like again, the like seduction Faerie that everyone knows her as. It is the, no, here's some information, here's in all seriousness, I've been around forever, like, heed my words sort of stuff. So yeah. And then we have the tree. Now, this is, I mentioned last time about how our last section contained my least favorite chapter to read. Not because it was poorly written or anything like that, just because from a story perspective, very rough, right? It contained the chapter where Kvothe and Denna fought. They parted ways and we haven't seen them together since, right? Again, don't remember how this book ends. I really hope there's some sort of content, even if it's just a letter. Denna got Kvothe's letter, understood to a point, was at least just happy to hear from him, sends him a letter back and says, writes it in a very Denna way, very, very coy, but also in a way that gives Kvothe hope. That would be my least, that would be the least that I would want to happen. I'm just like, please let there be some sort of acknowledgement between the two. I hope. We have 30 more chapters. A lot can happen in 30 chapters. But yeah, that was really rough because I always gravitate very closely to the romance in stories. We've seen it. I'm not going to spoil anything for if you haven't read along with the other books I've done so far, but we've seen it in the Mistborn series. We've seen it in the Percy Jackson series. There are varying levels of romance in both of those that are very nice, very nice parts of both of those series. And so that's true for this one as well. I will say, this is a hard part to read for different reasons. We talked to the tree, right? One piece of information is fantastic. A little frustrating, but the tree does confirm that bandit leader was Cinder. The same Cinder that Kvothe interacted with when they killed his troop. So crazy that he survived, that he was able to see him and survive once. He saw him and survived twice. Absolutely insane. Again, following the rules of three, which seems to happen in this book so many times that I just can't write them all down. Where it's like sometimes they're big stuff, but sometimes they're small stuff too. Even like him telling the story of like, well, in every story, uh, you know, uh, it would only make sense for the Felurian to give me three things, because that's how stories go, right? So many examples of the number three being important. So we're assuming that maybe their third encounter will be the one. I don't know though. But again, frustrating because it's like, dang, if I could have killed him or got some information out of him or something. All this time I've been searching for the Chandrian. Not quite in that way, because again, like, what are you gonna do? But for it to be confirmed that I did see him just a couple days ago, absolutely insane. I do like the one question that the tree asks him though, where the tree's like, "What are you gonna do? Kill them? You're gonna hunt down the Chandrian and kill them?" I love that question because on a surface level, it's very mocking, I think. But on a deeper level, it is a question that I don't think Kvothe has really addressed himself. We do divert a little bit and talk about maybe him finding the Emir and then the Emir being able to do something about the Chandrian, but it's like, what are you gonna do if you find him? Because you could say that you almost killed Cinder, but maybe you didn't. Maybe you weren't really close at all. And Cinder is way powerful than you think, and the lightning in the tree maybe startled him, but he was able to get away, not out of desperation or out of fear. He wasn't like running away like, oh no, I almost died. He's just like, all right, I'm out of here. So it is nice though to be a little breadcrumb, and we'll see where that goes, I guess. But then there's the other thing. And this is the thing that hurts, is the tree confirms that Dennis' patron does beat her. Very pretty bad too. And it is, the tree says that it is, part of a game to him, because he knows that Denna will not leave him, so he does it to see how much she will take before she maybe threatens to leave him, and then to just reel her back in because he has her on a leash. It's really hard because I think part of you didn't want this to be true. Part of you wanted everything that Dennis said to be correct. It's all just a coincidence, right? Kvothe is jumping to conclusions like we've seen him do a number of times before. Because when he gets a thought in his head, it is fact, right? But now that it's true, and again, we know that Den is not going to leave him, right? Unless she were to find another patron. And again, it's just like, I could spend the next 30 minutes just kind of like recapping everything we've learned so far in the almost 2 books we read about Denna and why it would, why she wouldn't leave. But we already know all of that, so I'm not gonna waste time. But all I'll say on that is that, like, the tree is right. We know that Denna wouldn't leave unless something crazy. Unless, like, I don't know, like, even the image that he put of, like, she's laying on the ground right now with a mouthful of blood, and do you know what the last thing she always remembers is you. You're what she always thinks of, and it's like that image right there is heartbreaking. That image right there is a little switch that is flipped in the space in his mind that Denna always occupies. There's always at least a little space in his brain that is 100% always dedicated to Denna. That he's going to kill that man when he sees him. any opportunity. In fact, the first opportunity, the first opportunity he gets, he's going to murder that man. And now that I mean, again, unless Kvothe dies at the end of this book, gets killed because of the Adem stuff, which could happen. Maybe that's why book 3 doesn't exist, because Kvothe actually dies. He's going to murder this man. There's nothing anyone can say, not even Denna. It doesn't matter. And that really hurts. That's something that I was saying about something I've thought before, where it's like, man, I don't know what book 3 holds. No one does. It doesn't exist yet. Or maybe it does. I don't know. Hasn't been published or released yet, obviously. I would love for there to be like a little novella that Pat writes about Denna, like from Denna's perspective on things, even like little moments here and there from before she met Kvothe and throughout the events of her meeting Kvothe, like us see some of these things that we've seen from Kvothe's perspective, but now from Denna's perspective. I would love that, because I think Denna has lived a very interesting life, the same way Kvothe has. But yeah, man, like this, very rough, because what we didn't want to be true has been confirmed to be true, and it just hurts Kvothe even more. He was having nightmares about it, and so it's just like, man, I really, this is the thing that got me when I was reading this, in preparation for today. It was killing me not to remember if we see Denna and Kvothe talk again, because it's just like, man, I really need them to talk. Like, again, like I've talked about this before, but like I need them to just embrace their feelings for each other, and just like, I don't know. And then even with the tree confirming that, man, before you lost your anger and had that big argument with her, she was just about to she was right on the edge of fully trusting you, because we know that she doesn't trust anyone. That's who she is. But she was right about there. You almost got her to put her full trust in you, and then that argument happened. Oh man, it's rough. It's tough. A couple more things. We had the interruption where Bast yells at Kvothe, because he's upset that he's like, he thinks Kvothe is lying. He thinks Kvothe is indulging and he's been embellishing things here and there up until this point, but he's like, you will not do this in regards to this tree. You won't. Not to me, because this tree holds a very special and high regard when it comes to the Fae. Basically, this all boils down to kind of what I said before, about like anyone who does talk to this tree basically carries a plague with them, and every decision that they make past that point are evil and destruction, because that's what the tree wants. That's why the tree never lies. The Felurian confirmed that. The tree never lies, but the tree always says things to make the person upset. Most of the time, the person comes away from talking to the tree and they are mad. Like their brain is mush. But if they do live, only terrible, terrible, terrible things happen. And he talked about other things too, where it's like, what's the name of that dude? I don't remember, but like some of the worst things in history that then were a domino effect of just more and more terrible events and death and destruction and all this stuff, all started from one person talking to the tree. So Bast almost has this like incredulous laugh where he's like, it all makes sense now. It makes sense why you've lived the life you have. Because you talked to this godforsaken tree. So that was interesting. Again, we still don't know. We don't know from the point in Kvothe is telling the story all that time until he is here at the end with Chronicler and Bast. There's so much gap. why is this series called The King Killer Chronicle? What king did he kill? Or maybe it's not even Kvothe, you know? Doesn't mean necessarily mean Kvothe is the one who killed the king, but like, what does all this mean, you know? And the last note I have ends on a little bit of a soft note, I guess, a little lighter. The Felurian does give Kvothe a shade to remember her by. Very sweet. Obviously leaves on the promise that he will return. We'll see if that happens, because Kvothe said he's like, I'm never coming back here, because if I come back here, I won't be able to leave. Even if I want to, it'd be impossible. Like the next time I come here will be the last. But the shade is cool. I mean, just like for future implications, I wonder does it have any like special powers or anything? I don't know. It'd be cool. It'd be cool to see. Yeah. Getting cloak seems to be a theme with him, Fela bought a cloak for him. He traded the cloak. He got a new one with like Denna. Now he gets one from the Felurian. So that was nice. But that is it. That is it for this week. Next time will be the end of this book. Chapters 121 through 152. It's like an extra chapter or two, just because there's like 32 chapters to end it. But yeah, I very much enjoyed this section. Like I said, I think surface level, the Felurian stuff was a little like unnecessary, but then when you get deeper, it's like, no, there's learn about the Fae, learn about the moon, that importance, a little bit about even more the Sphere of the Chandra. We had the tree stuff, which I think was very necessary. A lot of stuff. So, and I think it also heightens some of the stuff that he's done so far with the Adem. So, but yeah, that is it. Let me know what you thought of these last 30 chapters. Any predictions for the end of the book? Because we're going to finish the book. Yeah, that's it. Any sort of predictions, man? I got. I mean, obviously, the most pressing thing is the Adem. I would like to think there's 32 chapters left in the book, and we know how much can happen in 32 chapters. I don't think Kvothe gets killed. I mean, there's another book that people have been waiting for a very long time, but in theory, there is a whole other book. So it's like, does Kvothe die? That'd be kind of crazy. Wouldn't make sense because Kvothe is telling the story, right? And like with like losing his fingers or anything, it's like, I mean, probably not, right? Again, Kvothe is here telling the story. I assume he has all of his fingers, all that stuff, right? But I just don't know what would happen with I mean, I guess probably like Fichette is able to explain away her own worries, probably. I would like to think that he passes whatever test he has to take. Because again, if he fails, then that's when the bad stuff happens. So you'd have to assume that he doesn't fail, or he does, and then he just kills everyone somehow or something. I don't know. Past that, I don't really know. I would like to see him get in some sort of contact with Denna, even if it is a letter. That would put my mind at ease just a little bit. I'd like for him to return to the university. Again, just telling stories to Will and Sim, I think, would be very fun. Him also talking to Elendon about some things would be interesting. Even some of the headmasters would be really cool. He would definitely, I would like to see him go to Kelvin and be like, we need to make more of those arrow catchers now. Because he just went on the trip with the bandits and stuff. So his experience, he's like, we need more of these. And also the mayor. I keep forgetting about that, where it's like he's gonna go back to the mayor. Well, presumably again, we're assuming he doesn't die or anything here, but with the Adem. But after that, I assume his first stop is go back to the mayor, return like the money or whatever, and then see what happens there with him. Because again, you forget, you go all the way back to the point of all this. He's trying to get the mayor as a patron so he can go back to university and pay for that. And also just help out with his music and stuff, and just help with his overall well-being, like food and clothes and all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's it. Let me know any predictions you got, excitement levels for the end of the book, and yeah, that is it. Till next time, read the chapters, and we'll see what happens with Close Fingers. You know.